Hi, we're going to look at some integer addition today. So integers means positive and negative numbers, and addition is addition. We're adding or plussing things together. So many folks really struggle with integers when we use negative numbers. So it's really common to make mistakes when we're adding or subtracting these. There's another video that is just about subtraction. So if subtraction is something that you also struggle with, check out that video. So we're going to start with 3 plus 6, and we've got this lovely bucket, which we're going to put things in and see what ends up happening. So I'm going to put, I'm going to put in 3 to start with. So we see that we have, our bucket tells us that we have a total of 3. I put in 3 tiles, I have a total of 3. That's how much is in the bucket, 3. So we're starting with 3, and we're going to add 6. So we're going to put in more into our bucket. When I just say 3 or 6, I mean positive 3 or positive 6. It's presumed that if I don't say negative, that I'm talking about positive numbers. So I'm going to add in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And our bucket now tells us that we have 9, which is what we would expect because 3 plus 6 equals 9. So that makes sense. Okay, but let's get some negative numbers in here to make it a little bit more confusing. So what if I want to do 3 plus negative 6? What does that mean? So if we're going to do that, we are going to start with a bucket with 3, but we want to add in negative 6. So when we do that, we're going to say, okay, I'm going to add in negatives this time. 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, and negative 6. You may notice on the bucket that has been decreasing as we added in those negatives. And now you can see that we're at negative 3. So we have 3 plus negative 6 is equal to negative 3. But I have a lot more tiles in my bucket than just 3 negatives. I have some positives and I have some negatives. So how can we just be saying that I have negative 3? Well, whenever I have one positive and one negative, they cancel each other off and become a 0 pair. So they actually, if I take it out and I look over here, they are equal to 0. So they're not doing anything to it, to our value. So I can take out these pairs and you can see our number doesn't change. Nothing's happening because they are already canceling out. They are already worth 0. So whether or not those two are in or out, they're not making any difference. So if we take out the 3 sets of zeros, because they're 0 pairs, they're really just 0, we see that we do have just 3 negative tiles. So we have negative 3. So that can be something that's going to be a little bit tricky, but even if we have our 0 pair in, they cancel each other off, so they don't change our value. So we don't have to take them out. We can just leave them in there, and we can see that they cancel off. They don't change. We end up still just having negative 3. All right, so let's do another question. Let's empty our bucket out. Okay, let's do, well, what if we start with negatives? So we have negatives in there, and we're going to add positives. We're going to add positive 8. So if we start in our bucket, we're going to start with negatives. So we have negative 2 in our bucket. Okay, we want to add 8. So we're going to be putting in 8 positives. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you can see I've added in 8 positives, and those 2 negatives that we started off with have created 0 pairs with 2 of the positives. So those ones are all canceling off. because they, are really just 0, right? So then we have 6 actual values left in the bucket. That's how much we have. Okay, so then what if I have them both negative? What if I'm adding up 2 negative numbers? What happens then? So if I'm adding 2 negative numbers, so I have -2 to start with, and I want to add in 8 more negatives. So I'm just going to put in my 8 negatives. So 1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, and -8. Didn't come. -8. Okay, so we can see that -2 plus -8 is -10 because I started with -2 in my bucket and I just kept adding more negatives. Nothing cancels off because I just added more and more negatives, so we got more and more negative. And that's one way of thinking about integer subtract or addition, is this idea of putting into a bucket and are things canceling off? Or do you have any negatives and positives that are canceling off that are equaling just 0 or not? If you have any questions, please get a hold of me in the usual ways. And good luck with this. Also, check out the subtraction video if that is something that you're struggling with as well. Take care. Miigwech.